Hi, everyone, and welcome to Making It on Mondays. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late, but just now I had a little bit of an issue with Facebook and my browser for some reason. Didn't like it. Anyway, I hope you guys can see me. If you're on with me today, if you're on live, please say hi. If you are, if you're not on live and you are on replay, then also please say hi and let me know that you guys are here, so that I know that you're on, and I can also answer any questions that you have. So let me know if you have any of those as we go through. We're going to be on for about 10 minutes today, and I'm going to try and keep to time. I've been a lot better at keeping to time than I have in the past. Now, if you just give me a sec, I'm just going to pull up. I seem to have lost one of my screens. Give me 1 second, I'll pull it up. So today we're going to be talking about caffeine and fertility. And we are really interested in whether or not coffee or high levels of caffeine, if we're drinking lots of cups of tea, can actually impact our ability to conceive or our ability to have, to have a healthy birth. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And it is one of those things, caffeine, that is, it's a very, very interesting topic. It's a very, very hot topic, not just when we talk about fertility, but also when we're talking about our health in general. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of, good info, but there's also a lot of misinformation. And so what we're going to try and do today is to really help you to, to understand from looking at the research, and then more from a TCM perspective or traditional Chinese medicine perspective as well. What is a balanced approach in terms of caffeine and fertility, and what do you need to know so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to be drinking coffee if you're trying to conceive. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so my name is Louise Jeffrey. I'm an acupuncturist, a practitioner of Chinese medicine here in Sydney, Australia, and I'm also an eating psychology coach. So if you're a coffee lover, you will know how much coffee means to you, and you'll know how much you love coffee. I'm an ex-coffee drinker. I'm still a coffee lover. If I walk past, a coffee shop, I smell coffee, and it just, it's got so many wonderful, brings back so many wonderful memories, and I love the smell of coffee. But unfortunately, coffee doesn't love me. It doesn't make me feel great. It makes me kind of feel, jittery and anxious after I come down from that initial buzz. So I stick with tea. But for a lot of you who love coffee, you'll have a real kind of love relationship, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, as we go through. So what do we know about caffeine and fertility? Well, we know that high caffeine intake is associated with infertility, and increased miscarriage rates. So we know that, people who are drinking in excess of 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day, really not good for fertility. But even moderate coffee drinking, in other words, 1 to 3 cups per day, can actually reduce our fertility. And I'm just going to briefly share a few studies with you. There was a study from 1992 with 1,900 women in America by Yale University, and by the School of Medicine there. And what they found in that study was that the risk of not conceiving for 12 months was 55% higher for women drinking 1 cup of coffee per day, right? Now that's considered fairly mild use of coffee, but it was 100% higher for women drinking 1.5 to 3 cups a day, so moderate use. And then it was 176% higher for women drinking more than 3 cups per day, right? It's really interesting to see how the risk jumps up so quickly with each extra cup of coffee. Now, this is one fairly significant study on 1,900 women done in 1992, and there are more studies out there, but a lot of them kind of paint a similar picture, which is that it really seems that caffeine, for the most part, especially more than 1 cup per day, is really considered to be unhelpful for fertility. So that's what the research tells us. Now, having said that, the other thing that I found in my practice and in my years as an eating psychology coach, is that when we hold on too tight to what we should and shouldn't eat, and when we restrict too much, whether it's food or drink or whatever it is, this can also create stress in the body. And this is really not helpful either. So what we really need to do is we need to find the balance, and that's where TCM comes in. Now with TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, what we're trying to do is we're constantly trying to correct any imbalances in the body. And that's why we feel your pulse and we look at your tongue, because we're looking for what we call patterns of diagnosis. So for example, someone who presents with what we call cold in the uterus, we're going to want to make sure that we warm the uterus and we avoid, cold swimming, for example, so that we keep the blood moving, because we know that cold congeals and stagnates the blood, and we don't want that to happen, in the uterus. It's not helpful. And another example, and this is very relevant to caffeine, is that someone who presents with a lot of heat in their body is going to want to avoid food and drinks that create more heat. So if you tend to run more hot than cold, for example, or if you feel thirsty a lot, if you feel warm and sweaty at night, then avoiding coffee altogether whilst you're trying to conceive is really preferable. And this is because caffeine is a stimulant, right? It creates heat in the body and it dries the bodily fluids. As I said, which is really not helpful for fertility. It's also a diuretic, which means we're often left feeling even more dehydrated. So you really need a clear diagnosis of heat as a pattern from your acupuncturist, and you can ask your Chinese medicine practitioner around, heat in your body. And if you've been told that you've got a pattern of heat within your body, then it's really important for you to avoid coffee altogether. But if you have a colder constitution, for example, 1 week coffee a few times a week really may not be the end of the world. So I hope that makes sense. But if not, and everybody's different, and if you're stuck with this, let me know, and I'll see if I can explain it further, in the comments box, or, I'll ask your acupuncturist or your Chinese medicine practitioner to let you know what they suggest. So really the bottom line I'm saying here is that research is showing us that, that moderate to high coffee is really, really not helpful for fertility. Mild use, it seems to impact our fertility in a small way. So if you've got a hot constitution, and if you're a coffee drinker and you're trying to conceive naturally, then avoid coffee altogether. But if you don't have a hot constitution, then it's probably okay for you to reduce your caffeine intake to 1 to 2 coffees per week, and maybe 1 tea per day, rather than having to completely cut it out. And obviously it's best to make those coffees that you have, really weak as well. I mean, I have to acknowledge though that in Australia, coffee is such a huge part of our culture. We relate coffee drinking in Australia to connection and to pleasure. And it's a whole experience in itself, right? Drinking a cup of coffee. And so giving it up can leave a lot of us feeling really deprived and disconnected. So it may not be just as simple as kind of giving it up. So if you know what I mean, and if you can relate to this, if coffee is really sacred to you and it's somewhat of a ritual, then some suggestions might be to replace the coffee, with a healthier option like a chai tea or a herbal tea. And what this does is it allows us to still get the connection and the pleasure that we enjoy from something warm, but without the heat and without the chemicals that are going to negatively impact our fertility. And as I said, another suggestion is to really dilute your coffee by half. If you're going to have those 1 to 2 per week and you don't have a hot constitution and you really want to have that coffee, or if every now and again you really feel like having a weak coffee, go ahead and do it. It's not going to be the end of the world. But it's really about understanding that moderation is really key. And if you, as I say, if you've got a hot constitution, then just dropping down and finding, something else that can really help you, or can give you what it is that you need, like a chai tea, or, some form of other tea, that will give you that kind of connection and that pleasure. So that's it from me. I hope you guys have a beautiful week. If you've got any questions, as I said, let me know. If this resonates with you and it was helpful, I'd love to know too. Hope you guys have a beautiful week. It's sunny here in Sydney, and I'm looking forward to some sunshine after the rain. That's it from me. Bye for now.